Hi everybody and welcome to Australia. You wouldn't know it was summer here. I'm in a cardigan in December. Normally you'd be under a fan, and that's why we've got to call it climate change, not global warming, because it's all over the place. So here I am in a cardigan in the middle of summer. Now, I thought it's a long while since I've visited the Trump base. So let's just remind ourselves, because America has such a spectacular non-engagement with voting, Trump got in on 25% roughly of the potential vote. You'd have to think there was a good percentage in there of people who were anti-Hillary, who really just wanted to not vote Hillary in, and others who were just saying to the regular parties, we're not happy, give them a bit of a fright, you know. So that leaves us with those who actually believe Donald Trump, who actually supported every discordant, unthought out, sort of frothy bubble that fell out of his face, who wanted to believe. You know, I think some of them are probably very nasty people, but not all. I think most just wanted to believe he would bring back jobs. They also very naively believed when he said, lest we forget, healthcare, we'll have beautiful healthcare basically 2 days after he got office. He wouldn't cut Social Security. Look, he was the man. So I've always stepped aside from actually mocking or deriding the Trump base, even though Charlottesville and other things showed there's a truly shocking underbelly to it, which is to be condemned. But I think many people just hope for the best. And he's a con man, and they were conned. However, is that how they see it? So I thought it was time to tune into the base. So let us have a look. Trump's base. Where are they at now? Oh, card flew out. I'll tell you in a moment. Okay, what's happening with Trump's base? 2 years in, where are their heads? All right, what flew out? Group work and dirty money. Maybe they are watching. This is interesting. Look, I think they're beginning to see what he's really like. Whether that means they can admit it to themselves is another story. What they are seeing now is the black money, the group work. They are also seeing the lies and deceit from the Donald. Behind them, this is them celebrating in the early days. So their man got in. Now, let me just have a sociological moment with you viewers. I am a sports pig. You might not think so, but I watch all sorts of sport, vast amounts of sport. I really get sport. I'm an advocate of more sport, less war. People see sport as pointlessly gladiatorial. I don't. I see it as much more complex than that, and it satisfies a certain tribalism that particularly in sort of modern capitalist societies is missing. And so people would like to affiliate with a tribe. So if their team wins or loses, it becomes a source of collective pride or distress or whatever. They got their guy in. So for many of these voters, that represented a huge win in itself. So I had to say all that to explain this card. Often a wedding card, it was them wedded to Trump, They tied their colours to his mast and he won. As I've said before, this card has peculiar proportions. The wands are much bigger than the people celebrating. In other words, a diminished celebration. But for the Trump heartland, it was a win. This is in the past position. Now they're looking at the lies and deceit. They're also looking at the lies and deceit around money. So pentacles and pentacles. So dirty deals and family money, money being kept for the family. So that's sort of laying an undercoat, if you like, for this reading. They're beginning to see it, because even Fox News is no longer unanimous in support of bloaters. They still waffle on and still treacherously try to undermine the institutions of the United States and support him on many of their programs, but it's beginning to fray around the edges. So let's think of how to ask this next question of the base. Are they becoming, well, let's say this. Do they believe Trump is a con man now? Do they actually believe it? Do they believe he is a con man? Trump's base. Yes and no, mainly no. They are still not convinced of his wrongdoing. They are still defending him against all the odds and against each case as it comes up. They can see it, but they don't want to acknowledge it. They are fighting for him still. He represents their world and their opportunity in the world. So they're still holding out hope that their world, this is the world card, by the way, their world will be better because of Trump. But I would point out, for those learning tarot, a couple of interesting things about the world card. One is, with the sweeping fabric around the naked figure here, it gives the impression of movement, but the figure is stepping forward but leaning back. In other words, they are publicly supporting him, but they're beginning to have their doubts. The other thing about the world card, when it's not in a particularly favourable context like this, is this wreath, this Grecian sort of wreath, represents a treadmill to a certain extent. So that's that going forward, leaning back, being on a treadmill. And I think that's how a lot of them are feeling. They are appraising him, finally, belatedly, the Harvest card. Has he done enough to keep them on side? From their individual perspective, is this guy really acting in my best interest? They're thinking about it. They're thinking about it. At the moment, they're believing his dream. Their family will be better off under Trump. So, in other words, there is a hesitation there. They're beginning to wonder, oh, have we actually backed a dog? But not quite fully there to walk away from him. Obviously, you can see those who have. There are some quite fascinating videos out there of Trumpsters who are disappointed and disillusioned and have moved away from him. And they're quite fortifying if you're feeling overwhelmed by this story, to see those who are saying, yeah, I voted for him and I don't believe he's got the goods. But it's not helpful ultimately to just side with what we want to hear. Right? So my take at this point in time is they are thinking about it. They're beginning to be disillusioned, but they're not there yet. So I'm going to use the Sibylla Oracle cards to get a bit of a clarifier here going on. Let's have a look. I want to clarify on them still defending him. Still defending him. What's that about? Oh, yeah. This is an interesting card in the sense they've got the bad news. This is someone who's got a distressing letter. See, in her hands is the letter, and not wanting to acknowledge it. So they've actually got quite a lot of bad news, but at this point, it's still not enough to push them away. What's happening in the Trump base world? What's the world card about? They still want to love him. They get Cupid, they get love. They still want it to work. They desperately want it to work. They want to believe. They desperately want to believe. Next is the Harvest card. Has he done enough? Let's have a clarifier on has he done enough? Oh, another letter card. The transfer of information. So this is someone giving information. You'd have to think that's one of the legal cases. This could indicate in this position that one or two more of these guilty pleas and so forth will push them a bit more into the rational. It's someone posting a letter, giving information. So they've yet to see the information or the story that really challenges them. It's almost there, but not quite. Now, what about the delirious GOP card? You know, this is the hypocritical GOP. This is the performing GOP. Everything's wonderful in the heartland. So even if your children's school cannot afford enough chairs or desks or books or computers, that's okay. Even if you drop dead 15 years earlier because you haven't got health insurance, that's okay too, because America is great. Okay, so what's going to happen with that little fantasy? Oh, swords. This is someone who's about to be given the wreath of victory. So, in other words, this looks awfully like a Southern gentleman historically as well. Not that this phenomenon is unique to the South, but I take this as the voter stuff too. Someone's about to be crowned. This is winning an election. So what I take that to mean, it's also about the dreams coming true. Both these cards are about the dream, the American dream. All right, now the Senate that is still controlled by the Republicans, they're going to be watched very carefully. It's also up to the Senate how long they're prepared to defend the vandal in the White House. It's making them look very weak. But from the base's perspective, someone has been crowned. I take this to mean the midterm elections. So some red states now have blue leaders, but the red states who have red leaders, they're going to be watching them possibly for the first time. These are people who simply vote Republican cradle to grave, even against their own best interest. So they're looking at their elected officials, and they're going to look a bit more critically in the future. Okay. So I want to ask one more question on this is, will they go down with the ship, or is there any hope that significant numbers will not only stop supporting Trump but speak out against him? I'm just living for the day he goes to a MAGA rally and there's booze, you know. Would love that, would love that. So, is there an end game? Let's go further out. In the next 6 months, will the base still support Donald in the next 6 months? People are stubborn. They stick with what they know. Will the base stick with Donald in 6 months? Have a look. Oh, very interesting, viewers. This card keeps coming up. The dirty money card. They're not impressed with this stuff. They keep hearing about it. They keep hearing about these wealthy guys who minimize their tax, these phenomenally rich people who live in another world. And for the Trump voters, they're very used to having that 1% living in another world, but they're beginning to resent it. They're being offered things they don't want or not offered things they do want. So that's healthcare not coming through, etc. They are not getting what was promised to them by him. Their hearts will be broken. It has to happen. Sadly, it has to happen. But here's the card that I love, hasty revenge. I think there'll come a time, I did say 6 months, can't promise. And what we're talking about here, viewers, is not 3 people here and 24 people there. I'm talking about momentum in the base. Revenge. That they'll actually want revenge. They have put everything in behind this man. That's interesting. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. So many readings to do. And why was the 5th floor of the Department of Justice closed down? Who was the mystery witness? Okay, bye.